Thank you for coming to Homo-centric. My name is Hank Henderson, and this is the first reading of the 10th year of the series. How about that? Anyway, we've got three very talented people tonight. Again, thank you for waiting. I'm going to start my introductions. We'll get this thing going. Charles Jensen is the author of 6 chapbooks of poetry, and we figure that most of them have been read from right here over the years. They include Story Problems and Breakdown, and The First Risk, which was a finalist for the 2010 Lambda Literary Award. His poetry has appeared in the American Poetry Review, Field, The Journal, The New England Review, and Prairie Schooner, which always brings to mind hot weather and a beer. Prairie Schooner. He directs the writers program at the UCLA Extension, and tonight he's going to be reading from his recently published second full volume of poetry, Nanapedia. Please welcome Charlie Jensen.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I'm a low talker. I really have to eat the microphone. In the most appropriate way possible. Thank you to Hank for having me here. We were talking before the reading, and I think I read here not long after I moved to LA, and so I've been back a couple times, and every time it's amazing. I see familiar faces in the crowd. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to share this book with you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So Nanapedia is the smallest encyclopedia of American culture, but it's very complete. All of the titles of the poems are words that have been coined or corrupted by American culture. So I'm going to start with maybe one of the most maligned of those terms, which may apply to some of you. Millennials. We all need someone who believes in us. We all need semen to conceive in us. We all need people who will sleep with us. We all need winning to be virtuous. We all need willingness to bleed in us. We all need filling meals to steam for us. We all need silken words to sing for us. We all need milk and honey served to us. We all need matrimony saved for us. We all need alimony paid to us. We all need all our money made for us. We all need walls and ceilings raised for us. We all need wars that aren't dangerous. We all need bars routinely carding us. We all need breaks from what's too serious. We all need boxes full of useless stuff. We all need foxes that will hunt with us. We all need fortresses that shelter us. We all need shores that don't erode from us. We all need juries that account for us. We all need jokers in the deck with us. We all need Johns who won't beat up on us. We all need someone who believes in us. So I don't think it's a good idea to write a book about American culture without addressing one of our most problematic ideologies, which is the idea that we were destined to occupy this continent from coast to coast. So I've addressed it, maybe not as best as possible, but this next poem is called Manifest Destiny. Ingenuity is a uniquely American virtue. While Peruvians invented Machu Picchu, this was long ago. Americans have since established Unitarian Universalism, UHF, civil unions, and a series of euphemisms, underarm, etc. Anti-establishment types often argue that these new traditions lack utility, but this is untrue. America is the land of opportunity, after all, and where would humans be without America's uncanny knack for ubiquity? We are here, we are there. We invented the internet. We have Googled you. We invented the camera. Right now, we are watching you. It's a little creepy. So I feel like American culture is a big fan of the idea that the fittest will survive. So I've written this poem called Social Darwinism. The corral is full of horses, washed coral pink in the day's dying light. I'd rather have melon with its warm orange tones, or salmon, not the fish. Only coral gives rise to seahorses. Note the distinction. Back to that dirt. There's only one kind of horse knows the sting of the electric fence. The bravest or the dumbest, usually the same one. And that's what I think about that. So there's a section in the book that's called The Complete Abridged History of America. It's comprehensive. You don't need a history class, just read this. And then the section after it is called Footnotes from the Complete Abridged History of America. There are only 5 of them, but they're all about the Civil War. So I'm going to read one of them. And it recounts the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, but it does it in reverse. So everything's going to happen backward. As you remember, John Wilkes Booth shot the president, leapt from the balcony onto the stage, broke his ankle, shook his fist and shouted something in Latin, and then ran away. So this poem takes as its title that Latin phrase, which translates roughly to, thus always to tyrants, death to tyrants. It's called Sic Semper Tyrannis. Before the limp, a leap from balcony. Before the leap, the wound. Before the wound was hair tousled with shotgun breath. Before the breath, a spark, a click, my marksmanship. Before marksmanship, my arrival, calm and refined as the jaguar's unhurried pursuit. Before jaguar, I wore my suit of human skin. Before the suit, the bullet, poured as liquid in its mold. The bullet, before its birth, a vein of smoky ore bled through rock. This nation's death cooled deep within its core. Before the secret, a cell dividing, revolt against the body that sustains it. The first section of the book is called Americana, which is a word that I invented, and it means the fetishistic love of things that are Americana in nature. So to illustrate that, I wrote the opposite, and this poem is called Un-Americana. To dislike babies is un-American. To resist shaking hands is more un-American than to utter a bald-faced lie or to steal from a friend or colleague. To make modern art is very American. To appreciate it is not. To wear white shoes, no matter what anyone tells you, is still un-American. To speak French in Montreal is un-American. To carry a book anywhere but an airplane is un-American. To introduce a gun without discharging it is narratively un-American. It's also un-American to loathe the acrid smells of gunpowder and sweat that come with war. It is somewhat un-American to criticize beer. It is un-American to catch a fish and throw it back if it is large enough to keep. Now I'm going to get to the dirty stuff. There's a section in this book that is a biography of an American. So it starts with this, called Author's Note. Truth be told, either by me or someone else who inevitably speaks up, I was a crazy teen, fresh from the farms, with a cockwalk 2 feet off the ground and boots to match. I've made an effort here to list all the real-life lips I kissed that first year out of the egg, but to no avail. Every face I nested on had 2 of them, spread open like a fly trap, and my fly was trapped between those gritty teeth. Like the fertile fields of my youth, I begged to be plowed, opened and tilled, spilled out on the sheets. Truth be told, I was too coy, barely smart enough to catch a wink, never ready to pitch back a shimmy-hipped flirt. My lips got kissed, though, again and again and again, just by luck. The bulls among the men smiled at me, reared, and dug in. Okay, so the next one is named after a beverage you may have heard of. I think it's actually a shot. Panty dropper. I partied that night like a drunkenly spun celebrity on a bender, making cow eyes, large and wet, at any man able to purchase liquor. I stumbled around with my cup, mooing come-ons to passers-by. Someone propped me against the wall, rifle-like, loaded with rock salt shells, just waiting to get cocked. Leaning light-faced, with upturned eyes, I waited patiently for their long spikes to thicken in my palms. Following a man to his parked car, where he pees against the tire, then invites me inside. Which of us is the true marionette, the puppet I place in my lap, or the body I inhabit, so drunk I might be two different folks? The man's head bobs. In my ocean lap, he'll not find a fish. The sea, rocky like this, shoved in a back seat, can't hear the moon. So one summer I lived in this house, this was during college, big house where like everyone had, like there was a closet, that's a bedroom, here's a den, it's a bedroom, the basement, it's a bedroom, and none of us knew each other. So it was a lot of like crazy people from this private school, then me and another nerdy person on the main floor, and this heterosexual couple in the basement. We all became some friends, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about our friendship. This is called heteroflexible. His was the first nipple I ever saw pierced in real life. And then I met his girlfriend, sweet, likable girl I lovingly named Bitch. Eater of all my foods, and not enough shame. Her voice, singing upper register arias, floating up through air vents as familiar bedroom music. That summer he sauntered the floors, all lithe and muscular, carefully shaped, but not vulgar. Bitch went away on holiday. Then, in a bar for dancing, our bodies, then touching on purpose. When I lunged for touche, the foils of my lips tensile, he decoys. I plunged into nothing, no kissably close connection of our tongues. That summer, I was a dope, unable to be smoked or patted, not even spanked. We moved along and I forget the rest, but nothing changed. I saw him again years later over dinner. I looked him deeply in the groin and waited. He did not budge. Depressed, rejected, I shuffled home and masturbated. The next poem, any cooks here? Anyone cook? One person? What happens when you cut an onion?
You cry.
Do you know why?
Because it's old.
I'm gonna tell you why. Fast food. The American chef and the onion have been enemies for centuries. Onions strategize their maneuvers from their bunkers deep within the earth, rich with the smell of peat, black dirt, iron, and decay. In the dark, they have no need for eyes, which makes them smarter than your average potato. When torn from the soil, they make no sound, playing possum. Their golden skin flakes away, flayed by the chef's steady hand. The onion waits. It has but one offensive move. When the knife goes in, it bleats a sour music through the air. The onion dies, but it ensures someone will be there to grieve. So I'm going to end with a poem that I think will touch on an experience that many people here are familiar with, maybe actively engaging in right now. And it's inspired by the idea that there are many fish in the sea, perhaps literally. This is called Online Dating. What you pull from the water will love you. Mermaids, manatees, a muskellunge, you name it. Mermaids are lovely but make poor company over time. Their fins end up ruining automotive upholstery and fine linens. Don't ask how I know. The muskellunge, while impressive to your friends, will suffocate in your arms. Your love is star-crossed. You occupy mutually exclusive worlds. Manatees are such sad little beasts, hovering near the surface of the water, where propellers mark their thick, dull skin with ruts. This is the epitome of love. Though you scratch them, they'll not wander off. They want to be with you, even in silence, even not touching. To know you're there is enough for them. To know you exist is enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Our next writer is Ash May, who has friends here, which is good. Ash May is a non-binary poet, photographer, and recent Los Angeles transplant from Kansas. They formerly attended religion and Christian spiritual formation, they formerly studied religion and Christian spiritual formation at Friends University and are now pursuing an acting degree at Glendale Community College. Following a move to Los Angeles, they began using writing as a platform and an outlet for mental health battles and advocacy, and strive to make their writing a testament to the possibility of healing and self-discovery. In this odd transitional time between states and schools, Ash is exploring creatively, hiking as much as possible, and is ecstatic to hop into the LA literary scene. I say instead of letting them hop, we let them dive. So come on up, Ash May.
Hello, friends. So, like you said, I just moved here from Kansas in August. Initially, it's just a little bit high, to pursue treatment for some mental health stuff. And at the beginning of my treatment stay, my team and I made a goal for me to have a piece done a week and then have a recovery collection at the end. I finished a few weeks ago, and I will be reading a few pieces from that collection. Also, I'd like to give a little content warning, just like a general trauma trigger warning, so if anyone is not okay with that, feel free. I will not be offended if you need to scoot. But this first one is a little bit lighter than my other stuff. It is about my initial steps in my journey as a trans person. So this is called Thank You, Randolph McAfee. My junior year of high school, I asked my grandma to take me dress shopping. Floral became my print, boxes and buzz cuts, out of sight, out of mind. Please don't cut your hair again. My closet turned my grandmother's closet while my eyes grew dark, face grew thin. The lace on my family's favorite outfit did not make them love me anymore. They served me elegant invisibility cloaks until 2 years ago, my freshman year of college, when my small stature and short hair earned me a 10-year-old boy in a musical, Showtime. I met a flat chest for the first time and found a piece of myself in him. Thank you, Randolph McAfee. The costume designer sewed apologies into my suit, tie, and ace bandage, unknowing of my tears our first dress rehearsal in front of a mirror, longing for this role away from the stage and spotlight. I stuffed every "you really pull this role off well" in my pocket, oblivious affirmation that it was not really a character, that it would not be a fictitious persona forever. I bought my first binder 2 weeks after my final bow, although it yet felt apart, cast as truth. For months later, Randolph's parents jokingly called out "son" at me from across the fine arts hallway. They stay in my pocket too. I keep photos of the three of us front and center stage as a reminder to stay as unshakably confident as that 10-year-old boy. Thank you, Randolph McAfee. Thank you. So the second one is a bit more personal, but dark, vulnerable, and a little bit scary to read in front of a group of people that I don't know. Also, fun fact, this is my very first lit reading, so thank you for being my first. So this one is called Luggage, and it's a mashup of two different poems that I wrote at the beginning of my treatment stay. I wrote a packing list today of bullets to my brain, fragments to the heart, the oversized baggage at my spirit's check-in. Tattered luggage tags read, "You should have been watching her more closely, you need straightened out, and where did we go wrong with our little girl?" Flight terms and conditions. When I was my grandma's little girl, she'd hold me tight in her arms while I looked into her eyes, found infinity, and whispered softly, "Nana will be best friends forever." If I would have known she only wanted to call a straight girl her best friend, I wouldn't have clicked accept on the terms and conditions. 20 pages, fine print, expectations, a checklist for the perfect girl I'd never be. Hush, little Ashley, don't say a word. You're about to live a life unseen and unheard. Click here if you agree. Use of chest binders and button-ups and clippers to my damn near bare scalp, strictly prohibited. Error message. Homosexual tendencies exhibited in my cousin's basement March 2016 is in direct violation of conservative life standards. Excommunicated. Promised her it would never happen again, not what it looked like, just a misunderstanding. She didn't give me 3 strikes, one more, and I was out of the closet in my fucking mind. I wish you could just be my little girl again. Pigtails and dresses, when all I wanted was a boy's toy from McDonald's and a backwards baseball cap. I swallowed my pride and identity, suffocated in pages of her devastating gospel. Hate the sin, but hate the sinner even more, right? It's 2018 now, and I've canceled my subscription to self-denial. It's 2019 now, and I've canceled my subscription to self-denial. The most beautiful parts of me emerging from under the pages. I will let her love wave at me from 1,200 miles away, and I will smile back even though I know exactly how high she looks down upon me from. There are enough mountains between us to feel love, but lose expectations in the Rockies. I become a tour guide to individuality and creativity, the individuality I never found in those pages, the freedom never listed in the terms and conditions. Flight check-in. Tags hang by a thread but linger on. The beauty inside these bags tell a different tale. Unzip and unload, your bags have been checked. Confiscated the fault, sent back to the abusers at no added charge. How could a 10-year-old kid have known about the boner they'd see in their 6-year-old sister's hands? I jumped out of my climbing tree that day into the arms of carnage and our little secret. The fault kept me frozen. The first tag around my heart read, "Don't let it happen again." My first friendship bracelet was shame. Sworn into secrecy, it strangled me until 3 years later when I showed my dad what it read, and he loosened the knot, but it was still my job to keep her safe from then on out. What they didn't know was that I craved security too. I needed a superhero but continued to be one instead. I still check the inmate log at his prison sometimes to be reassured he's still trapped too. Next bag, a carry-on. You've been randomly selected for an elbow to the gut, hangers to the face, hand to the throat. My bag burst at the seams, screaming to be searched. CPS reports and guidance counselors and children's advocacy centers left me more broken than I was before. If I would have done this or that or the other, he told me, I wouldn't have been so worthless. My throat and heart lived in my father's hands for 18 years. Things are better now for him, but he's still the nightmare chasing me. I walk a tightrope, PTSD into screams on one side, my therapist saying it's not your fault, Ash, on the other. He placed a necklace, worthless bitch, over my chest, but I'm snapping it off today. Another tag tells me maybe if my mother would have stayed, I wouldn't be so fucking queer. Guess I'm into pussy because she was one too. Don't fret though, the man who assaulted me wanted to be straightened out too. The tag from that night reads, the Xanax was too fucking wild for you to remember what happened, but his face in the Bible-shaped box in the back of my mind screams, you had this coming. Sexual assault campaigns and advocates say otherwise, and I'm beginning to believe it. Liberation is cutting tags one by one. My heart is beginning to beat again, one by one. It throws them in the garbage and pulls me out. I'm regrouping, recentering, ready for check-in, only a personal item this time. Thank you. So I am going to end with one that I wrote in response to the New York Times article that was published like a month or two ago about a draft of legislation to define like trans people out of existence, which sparked the Won't Be Erased movement, and here is my response. Sunday news. Sex is defined straight out of the womb, boy or girl, penis or vagina, black or white, that's what the government told us today. A lonely Sunday at the kitchen table, headline reads, transgender could be defined out of existence. Might as well be, I guess. Tried telling a fellow trans confidant the news, got a hand to the face, and an I don't look at bad news for a reason. I won't be silenced, though. I'll lock grips with the nearest arm, nearest ally, and yell and kick and scream and fight. My identity was buried beneath a pile of eraser shavings for 19 years. On a birth certificate that read female. My heroes sat in the pews at their sister's wedding, facing a sign at the altar next to her that read, only dresses allowed by my side. My friends is trapped in the hand they raised to the truth of the toxicity of the country that we live in. The toxicity of it is this. My own community is being forced out of the military draft and of visibility as human beings. A white man, a bankruptcy, and a small loan of $1 million once is crossed out of a piece of paper. A piece of paper scripted by slavery and genocide that only brings safety to men like them. Unchangeable, our genders and genitals and their minds to be otherwise determined by scientific genetic testing. But where was the science at when we put in God we trust in our currency and pledge? What happened to a test of heart, of understanding and acceptance and majority and integrity? Take a matchstick to the uniform and explicit definition of gender and make space for love for ourselves and each other. Replace it with an explicit and uniform definition, a banner of humanity conducive to everyone's identity, authenticity, and truth. In their draft of legislation, they wrote that sex is immutable. Even 10-year-old me would have said, I am too. Chopped hair, baggy shorts, and a plaid button-up and tie at my 5th grade graduation, too young to have ever been swayed any other way, but when I hit puberty, they said no more. It was cute to be a tomboy until my family realized there was less tom and more boy. They never let me cut my hair again. I shave it every year for renewed liberation, restored freedom from the dresses both my family and the government force upon me, and the upcoming absence of my breasts and estrogen. My unchangeability will be proven even further. Of course, gender is immutable. I was born a girl just as well as Jazz Jennings was born a boy. We are immutable. Nobody ever took 6-year-old me to the boys section of Target. My grandma pulled me away, and I stood there and screamed until I got the clothes I deserved. We are born exactly as we're meant to be on the inside. Surgery confirms our immutability. We are unchangeable, unshakable. Our strength is unfathomable, stronger than some imbecile cis man in a very white house. Our civil rights are in the face of pending revocation. Our truth is not, and our truth is this. We are inextinguishable voices of power, advocacy, and change. We will not succumb to expungement. We are immutable, and we will not be erased. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ash. You can tell I don't have it memorized, right? So New Yorker Stephen S. Mills is the author of the Lambda Award-winning book, He Do the Gay Man in Different Voices, and A History of the Unmarried, both from Sibling Rivalry Press. His work has appeared in the Antioch Review, Pank, the New York Quarterly, and the Los Angeles Review, the Rumpus, and others. He's also the winner of the 2008 Cheval Press Oscar Wilde Poetry Award and the 2014 Christopher Hewitt Award for Fiction. His third poetry collection, dramatic pause, Not Everything Thrown Starts a Revolution, is now available from Sibling Rivalry Press, or right here at that table right after the reading, and I'll probably sign it for you too. So please welcome Stephen Mills.
All right, thank you. All right, and I just want to say it's great to witness someone doing their first lit reading here. I think that is awesome. You know, those of us who've done this a long time, it's a hard thing to do, and so that's pretty amazing to be able to watch. So I am here promoting my third book, Not Everything Thrown Starts a Revolution. Since this is the homo-centric reading, I'm going to try to read my more homo poems in the book. So I will just say briefly that the book it's divided into two sections. And so the first section is a historical, fictionalized story set in the 18th century. And the second half of the book is more personalized poems from the 21st century. And there's strange parallels between the two, and they're both in conversation with each other. So I'm just saying that because I'm only going to read from the second section, so if you then buy the book and start reading it, you'll be like, what the fuck this is not what I signed up for. So I promise that the poems are in here, all right? So I'm just going to read from the other section, all right? So I'm going to read, this is kind of a long, I read a lot of long poems, which makes reading sometimes a little difficult, but I'm reading most of this poem, I'm cutting out small sections. But this poem is called How We Became Sluts. It seems like something that would begin in the body, a fleshy kind of desire, an impulse, something hard to control like hunger. But it began in the mind, mine, yours, where ideas fester, expand, become our existence. You read The Ethical Slut, which is mostly common sense to us now, and some bullshit too. It's a little late for a manual after so many years of doing it on our own. The book talks of crushes, how they happen in the openness, but how they pass us by, leave us. Maybe that's why they're called crushes. They break down, crumble easily. We are good at talking, you and I, probably too much sometimes, but words are our currency, our lifeline. It's 75 degrees in New York as he rams his cock down my throat, making me feel used in the best way possible. I've never sucked cock in a park before. In public, yes, but not a park. There's dirt and broken glass below us. I aim knees carefully, trying not to care. Another man watches, cock out. There is danger in this, or could be, or should be. Stories we tell to scare ourselves out of desire. What if he's a murderer or rapist? Too late. When he comes, it explodes all over my face, my tank top, my own cock. I remove my underwear to clean myself up, unprepared for a cruise in the park. Then I slip them inside my New Yorker tote, free with subscription. We part ways at the top of the path. I snap his picture from the back with my phone and send it to you. On the subway platform, an elderly European couple asks for directions. I help them. My hairband is lost in the dirt, my red hair loose and longer than it's ever been. On the train home, a man reads a newspaper. Headline, Death Penalty Given in Boston Marathon Bombing. Sometimes I chat with other guys in other cities, other states, sometimes other countries, and weave wild stories to make them come. We trade pictures, I tell lies, I try to figure out what they want, what they desire, what they're afraid to tell their lovers. My doctor says I have to clap, tells me if I remember or if I am in contact with my sexual partners, I should tell them. Some I know, others I don't. Like the tall, thick man with dreads who sucked both our cocks at the bathhouse party during Pride weekend. I send some texts, I take some pills, I wait 7 days. You clap your hands when you see me. That took you guys a while. All right. While you work evenings, I binge watch The Americans, imagining us as spies, using our bodies to get information for our country while trying to navigate a real marriage, real responsibilities. For we are married now, not just in name but in real hard law, paper trails and rings and photographs. Do we appear as something we are not? Commies as Americans, kind white married folk but really sex maniacs? I feel like a spy trying to find the right information for the right cause, but then wondering if it's all worth it in the end. It's not easy going against the masses. Carrie Russell's hair understands. As a teenager of the 1990s, I spent late nights in AOL chat rooms, talking with 40-something divorcees. I wove tales of bad husbands and the struggles of middle-aged dating, found ways to comfort the lonely, the glow of the screen lighting my smile, amazed at all I could get away with. Some nights our bodies move together like the first years, like time might be running backward, a hunger, a thirst, something to shake the melancholy from my bones. It was a finger that inched forward, then a hand fully clasped, fingers interlaced, then a kiss, a blush. We were just boys. And then there were nights tangled in each other's bodies, and in that quilt your grandmother made, which years had turned to rags. I feared I might wake to your neck noosed in its shreds, a body so still next to mine still breathing. We take pills now to prevent HIV infection, like out of some gay boy sci-fi flick, blue on tongues. We laugh at the freedom from fear. We talk of bodies we want, old times together, of changing landscapes. We speak of anything and everything and nothing. And tomorrow I will text you pictures of me fucking a guy we met once, my dick bare in his ass. You will send me a smiley face, or maybe a simple, I love you. And so I live in New York, and for the last little over 3 years, I've worked in HIV prevention at Mount Sinai, and I run a grant that provides HIV. I do HIV testing and STI testing in sex clubs and bathhouses in New York. And so this poem sort of came from that experience slightly. It's called Self-Portrait as Unconscious Man at Bathhouse. They stand over him face down, him naked, him half out of the door, cot, light, lube inside. They stand over him, the police, and ask if anyone knows him. His ID at the front, locked away. One man says he was with him but doesn't know him. A body next to a body is only a certain kind of knowing. And now that body has stopped moving, is half out of the door, on the floor, face down. The police stand over him, ask questions, need to get his ID from the front. Who is this man? As if an ID can tell you that. A man on the floor, face down, him naked, him not moving, his back a smooth arch of white, his hair patches of gray. None of this tells them who he is or why or how. A name is in a drawer at the front, checked in, but it takes time, and he doesn't move. Half out of the door, face down on the floor. They stand over him, calling, "Sir, sir, sir." Right, and one of the connections between the two sections of the book is that both the female character in the first half of the book has red hair, and I have red hair. So this poem is about that, about being ginger, about me, not her. But all right. So it's called "For the Devil Works in the Red That Spins Your Finger." At night, your hand, my hair, the weight of it spinning through the red, putting you to sleep like a spell. Like a forgotten power, like magic suddenly awake in my bones from long ago, another life, another time, another story. Like Grimm's Iron Hans, who was red all over, beard and body, a rusty wild man whose story was later used by the men's movement, whatever that is, to say something about masculinity, but nothing about redness. They say the devil is here in the red, creeping for my roots, like I never stood a chance. Wicked comes this way. Only 1 to 2% of the population has red hair, the rarest color. Like Anne of Green Gables, books I read with my mother years ago. Her hair not red, but chemo thin now from 6 months of treatment. But she is not here, and her hair, she says, is going to be okay. And mine is longer now, and redder, and I own it. Redhead, ginger boy, matching drapes and carpet. And every few years, the internet explodes with myths of our extinction, the dying gingers, the fading red, the end of days that is always approaching but never comes. In medieval times, red hair was the mark of the beast, the mark of sexual desire, the mark of moral degradation, the mark of a witch, a werewolf, a vampire, something to fear. Stories to tell at night around fires burning bright. And years ago, my therapist in Florida, the one with the pug, which he never let me hold, which is the only reason I picked him, told me I was hypersexual, told me he could do nothing for me. told me my expectations were unreasonable. I just wanted to hold his pug. In the 19th century, records indicate 48% of women who committed crimes were redheads. Or were they just the ones accused? We are always guilty, aren't we? Kick a ginger day turned into kill a ginger day, turned into kiss a ginger day, and on we spin. Thor, the god of thunder, is described as having red hair. Take that, Chris Hemsworth. In pop culture, redheads are often the loser or the bully. Sometimes sexy, but only if you are female. Prince Harry excluded. But in real life, it's all, I love gingers. Does the carpet match the drapes? Can I see? I hear redheads are good in bed. Is it true? Show me, love me, fuck me. Judas and Mary Magdalene are both depicted with red hair. Red that shocks the night. Red that makes the narrative take shape. Creates our expectations, our history. Like a map suddenly laid out in the strands of red that spin your finger at night in bed, you fast asleep, me wide awake. All right, so I'm going to read one of the kind of close to the end of the book poems. So there's also like a criminal I haven't read any of the poems that really make this clear, but there's also a criminal justice element to both sections of the book, and partly my own experience with the criminal justice system. And so this poem is called Conditional Discharge. It also has sort of a send up to Frank O'Hara if you're really familiar with his work at the end. But all right, Conditional Discharge. It's yes, Your Honor, and no, Your Honor, and law-abiding promises to take care of my family, and sheets of paper never fully explained, checkboxes and numbers and codes that mean I did something wrong, but now after 6 months, let's call it something else, a misdemeanor. But everything could change if I step out of line, if I don't pay the court fees, if I don't get my mouth swabbed, rub it left and right and on my tongue like a lollipop. And if I don't get my index fingers pressed to ink real this time, and if I don't lead a productive life, whatever that means, though no one here knows my life, or even my name, it's misspelled on all the sheets of paper. I tell them over and over, and all I get is a nod and a question, but does it match the rest? Yes, all the papers match. Yes, all the papers are wrong. Yes, Your Honor, and no, Your Honor, and so I am discharged conditionally, sent into the world with poems in my pocket from the Supreme Court of the State of New York. So I'm going to end by reading a newer poem because anyone who's published books, it's a very long process, and so you're always reading poems you wrote years ago. Actually, this book I started writing in like 2012 before I think right after my first book came out. So you're oftentimes working on something, and then when it finally comes out, you're reading from it, and obviously you're working on other things. So I'm working on a new project right now, so I'm just going to read one of the poems from that as to end. All the poems in the first section of this new book I'm writing begin with the words "in life." So this poem is called "In Life." We do not drive by Jean-Benet Ramsey's house, but do by edibles. We do not drive by because Jay's husband D says he won't do it, and it's his car. And I'm a guest, so I do not demand it, even though I want to. So we talk instead of Jean-Benet, of the theories, of her brother, the fake ransom note, and something about pineapple in the throat, which I remember from watching that bad doc on CBS. Jay says we are only 7 minutes away from the house, which she thinks is small, even though they had money, which is evidence of how expensive it is to live in Boulder, which is why Jay and Dee live outside it. But Dee says it's not so small, and we Google it, and it's fairly good size, especially to me and my husband, a different Dee, who stays fairly quiet on the subject of dead children, of conspiracy theories, of police missteps. We live in New York, where one has a different relationship to space. We park the car, walk down Pearl Street. It's a sunny Sunday in April, not at all like Christmas Day 1996 when Jean-Benet was killed. I was just 14 that year, and I didn't know Jay or either Dee. There's a gathering in the street celebrating Nepal, men and women wrapped in brightly colored fabrics, and another smaller group protesting fracking with tambourines. Dee makes fun of them, not my Dee. We have lunch at a hippie restaurant which only takes cash and personal checks. Who does that anymore? Everyone is in loose-fitting clothes and tie-dye, which makes us forget about the Ramsey house and how close we are to tragedy. Then on the way back, we stopped to buy edibles because I want to try them. The guy at the store asked me about my dosage. I don't know what to say. He's a walking stereotype. I buy cookie dough flavored blocks which crunch like they are threaded with lines of a Whitman poem. I eat them in the back seat of the car as it starts to get dark and the road opens to empty fields with mountains behind. A landscape you can't help but stare at. One at odds with the heavily made up little girl in pinks and blues and hair so blonde it burns your eyes. I wonder if the weed is kicking in as my body melts into the seat and Boulder gets farther and farther away. When we get back to the house, not the Ramsey house, we eat cupcakes Jay made. And upstairs before bed, I get into a laughing fit, curled on the floor, tears in my eyes, a laugh so hard I can barely breathe. My D stands over me and says, "I think you are stoned." I can't find words to respond, just gasps of air, just 40 minutes away from where she died, a place we did not drive by, a place we did not see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Wow, what a cool night. Charlie's back here for his 63rd time. Ash, congratulations on your first public reading. That was amazing. And Stephen, welcome back. He was here a few years ago, so it's not even his first time here. I've been reading this Justin Chin book, 98 Wounds. I've been reading the last 30 pages for 3 weeks. Over and over again. He asks in there, are we made of stories or are we made of facts? And that just stuck with me. Think about that. Jussie Smollett was in the news today, all day, everywhere, because of an incredibly violent attack on him that was obviously racial and not homophobic, although that does play into it. So tonight, as usual, I'm going to ask you to look around the room and pick out somebody that you don't know and go up and introduce yourself to them. Because if you do that, we expand our tribe and it's going to go out farther and farther and farther and reach kids that still think that they are lost and can't find someone, and possibly even whisper by somebody who thinks stupidly in a red hat, and we may finally start to change their minds. But take some time and say hello. We've got this patio. It's ours, okay? This is queer space right now. Use it. Both Charlie and Stephen have their books over here. If you'd like to buy a copy, please. Small press, tiny presses, little tiny presses that fit on this stage. So ask them and at least introduce yourselves and say hi. Colby Holt is here, and he is doing another queer event over at Akbar on a monthly basis. It's a queer slam on Sunday nights. She's the third Sunday, am I correct? And Jen was there last month and tore up the place, and I'm going to go make some noise there this coming February. So find it on Facebook and stop by and support that as well. As always, be careful driving. It's crazy out there. And thanks for coming. Good night.